Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are in the presence of a cultural icon, a physical specimen, a controversialist, a master orator, a champ. And we've also got Andrew Tate.
That was smooth. I like that. I was sitting there thinking, I'll take this introduction. I'll take this. But thank you.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, G. You?
You're good, yeah?
Yeah, man.
Mashallah, congratulations on your Islam, bro, man.
Thank you, my friend.
You know, the Muslim community really welcomes you, man.
Yeah, it's been pretty divided. I've had a whole bunch of support.
Yes.
Obviously, there's been some people who are not quite pleased about the idea. I think when you have a passionate subject and people that are truly engulfed in an idea, you're going to have some degree of polarization.
I think that maybe when you look in the online space, that might be your impression. But in reality, on the ground, I mean, that's definitely not the case. I would say the vast majority of people, 80, 90%, are completely happy about this. And it's just that the minority have a very loud voice.
Well, that's exactly it. That's the whole problem with the internet as a whole, not just Islam, but the internet as a whole is about vocal minorities that look much larger than they are, right?
Yes.
And I agree with you, and I'd like to hear that. But the reason I know what you're saying is true is because it's the same even in my case in other subjects. Online, I have all this some kind of hate or people trying to disagree with me. But when I walk through life, I have 30,000 interactions with people, and not a single one's ever been negative ever.
Yeah,
so it is crazy how the vocal minority is amplified on social media.
The main thing to note, though, is that Islam, it completely wipes away your sins. I mean, most of the companions of the Prophet had done many things which are heinous and polytheism. And, I mean, for us as Muslims, polytheism is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
And so there is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad where he states that Islam, it completely yuhdimu ma qabla. It destroys everything before. It means it wipes away everything before it. In other words, your slate is absolutely clean. Now, if there are some people who are actually coming and giving you a bit of a hard time, that's actually their problem.
Yeah.
Because in reality, honestly, bro, this is completely un-Islamic. I mean, so that's the first thing. There's actually a verse in the Quran, interestingly enough as well, which says that if you become a Muslim, إِلَّا مَنْ آمَنَ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, whoever repents and believes and does good works, then God will يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ, that God will change their bad deeds into good deeds. So how does that make you feel?
Well, yeah, that's obviously fantastic to hear and good to know. And it's interesting because I've spent very little time paying attention to the negative comments because I don't in general. But on this particular subject, a few people were forwarding me like the profiles of somebody or of the people who were unhappy with my conversion, and they weren't living very Islamic lives themselves. So it's kind of funny to look at, you know.
Exactly, bro. I wanted to start with something which I think the whole world wants to hear about, which, to be honest with you, affects our sector as people who want to speak about Islam, call people to Islam, defend Islam, have an Islamic voice or a voice for the Muslim people, which is your ban.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, I found it was a vicious attack, a brutal attack on you. It's a case study example now. They've put you in the history books. The question is, what grounds have all of these different social media organizations banned you?
They never gave me grounds. They never sent me an official email. They never gave me an official reason. They just delete your profile and you just can't log in anymore. The reason they don't give you an official reason, I think, at the end is because they're scared in a court of law that they're going to be stuck to one reason, right? So if I decide to take them to court, they want to be able to flip-flop and make up reasons as they go. They want to change their terms of service and terms and conditions proactively. They want to change it afterwards. So it's this one here.
Oh, that's...
I don't know what this is. It's not me. I don't know who this is.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah.
But
Just, put that, yeah.
yeah, but so they never gave me an official reason for banning me. So I don't truly understand and truly know. I mean, I understand the reason they've come up with. I know that reason is false. I have my own theories on why they've banned me, but them themselves have never told me why. They just delete your profile.
For example, YouTube. Most producers know that YouTube have community guidelines, right? Yeah. And they have copyright strikes. So, for example, if one breaks the rules, if you like, of engagement, then they're given a strike, and then a second strike, and a third. You're telling me that this process was not taken with you?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I had no strikes. When I first got banned, the initial ban was on Meta. It was on Facebook and Instagram. In perfect synchronization was a large press release by the media, which gave this reason to justify banning me, which was of course false. And I knew the ban was coming. We can talk about that in a second. But when it first hit, I then by coincidence got one strike on my YouTube channel.
Was it a community strike?
It was some strike for some old video about me talking about masks, saying that masks were ridiculous, a COVID-19 strike.
Yeah.
On a very old video. They gave me a strike, which obviously prevents you from posting for 7 days.
Yeah.
So I filmed a reply to my initial ban, and then after 5 days, I think, as the strike was coming to an end, just before I could post, they deleted the whole channel without explanation, without an email, nothing, just deleted all of it, wiped it off. And the channel wasn't even in my name. This is what's funny about this. Yes, I was on the channel, but the channel was in the name of the producer, so it wasn't even officially my channel. My brother's channel got wiped. Like, they just attack and just delete everything. And yeah, these community guidelines are so ridiculously vague that they don't even mean anything. Trying to read them is like reading garbage. It doesn't make any sense.
I've been following the arguments online about this kind of thing. And obviously, one of the key tenets, if you like, of Western civilization is freedom of expression and speech.
Yeah.
And the main counter-argument is that, no, but YouTube and all these other companies, they're private companies. But what I would respond to that is that, well, these are private companies, but in many ways, they have a higher ability to uphold freedom of speech and expression than even the governments do.
Yep.
So this is actually it's like an Orwellian state. Like, we're looking at something which, the thought police. Isn't this concerning that you have these elites, whoever they may be, who can take these arbitrary decisions and delete somebody from YouTube? Like
Yeah, it's worse than concerning. This is why I talk about the Matrix all the time in my videos,
Yeah.
and I try and explain that we are living in a false version of reality. We're living in a computer-generated simulation because the computers, which is the social media companies, are generating a version of reality which simply isn't true. By deleting one entire side of the argument, by purporting facts, which happen to be false, by deleting information which happens to be true, by making sure the algorithms choose what information you see and what you don't see, they're literally affecting the world people live in. And there's people who are walking through the world today with a mindset and a view on life which is the result of false information, the result of a construction by these social media companies. So we're living inside of a matrix. We're living inside of a very false version of reality, and it's scary.
And that's, in many ways, it can be more pernicious than a classic totalitarian state, because at least with a totalitarian state, everyone's being honest about their level of domination. With this kind of thing, it's like, it gives you the illusion of freedom. Do what you want, but then we'll control the narratives in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think in most totalitarian states, like, I don't think freedom of speech exists anywhere on the planet, but I do think inside of some states, you know what you can talk about and you know what you can't talk about, and it's pretty clear, right? If I were to go to Russia, for example, I would know what I could say and what I couldn't say without getting in trouble, right? But in the Western world, we pretend that's not the case. And I think that often they'll let you discuss many different subjects until you get to a certain point of influence, and that's when they get afraid of you. It's not just what you say, it's how powerful your voice is. I think the biggest problem with me is not the things I was saying, it's the fact that I became so monumentally popular. And if you're monumentally popular and you have a huge proportion of the youth and a large contingent of the population which are interested in your words, and you haven't sold your soul to the agenda, then they see, okay, he's a large counteraction to our methods and what we're trying to do here, so he has to go. So I think also you can be the victim of your own success in the Western world.
So let me ask you this final question on this point, which is that you call it the matrix, we can call it the liberal world order. Because the LWO or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's certainly a method of control. They've got their own ideologies. You know, liberalism, for example, second wave feminism, still, they're shoving it in our faces. And obviously you've said things which are totally antithetical to that, which in many ways could be argued to be the reason why they banned you, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm against this whole idea of liberalism and tolerance as a whole, because one, it's hypocritical because these people are not liberal and tolerant. The people who are talking about liberalism and tolerance, they want us all to look different but think the same. If you think differently, then you're instantly a bad guy, right? They love the idea of someone looking different so they can pretend they're diverse and tolerant, but they want you to say the same things and believe the same things. As soon as you step outside of their pre-approved script, instantly they're no longer tolerant and they're no longer interested in diversity of thought. So the first thing, it's very hypocritical. And secondly, I've learned in life that the easiest way to get people to accept bad things is to do it with a Trojan horse. You find some way to disguise it. Even the Senate does this. Even governments do this. They'll say, the green bill, this is to save the environment. And then somewhere on page 84 will be this little code about giving them all a pay rise. And you don't want to look at the bad guy who says no to saving the environment, and they just sneak it in, right? So it's very difficult. If you vote against saving the environment, you're terrible. And the media talks about how you didn't want to save the environment, and you have to sit there and try and explain on page 84, the MPs are trying to get an extra 45% money. and you're already on a back foot. And this is how they do it. They do everything with Trojan horses, and it doesn't matter what you want to name. Even agendas that are pure of heart, simple things, they end up being weaponized. And Trojan, like you just said, second wave feminism and liberalism, all this crazy stuff. But the number one most dangerous one is this idea of tolerance. To sit and talk about being tolerant sounds like such a good thing that it's very difficult for someone to sit and say, no, I am an intolerant person. Now you look bad. But when they say tolerance and push tolerance to the point where absolute degeneracy must be accepted,
That's the point, yeah.
then you're a better person to not be tolerant. You can't be tolerant of degeneracy. You can't be tolerant of your own children seeing things they shouldn't see. You can be tolerant of the destruction of society. If they're going to sit here and say that, no, tolerance is the best thing ever, and then Trojan horse it and destroy the way humans interact, then I don't think tolerance is a good thing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. They've hijacked the phrase and they've used it in their own context. There's one particular political thinker, his name is Mumbai. He said something very interesting. He said that the West has not acted morally consistent. They've only acted strategically consistent. Yep. And so it's tolerance when it's within your own borders or within a certain subsect of people, but then it becomes whatever it becomes a colonizing mission or a civilizing mission when it comes to the Iraq War, for example.
Completely. If you look at all of Western foreign policy, I mean, they'll talk about we need democracy, we care about freedom. They come up with all this garbage. But the truth is they'll support any side they want to support regardless of whether they're democratic, regardless of what team they're on. They don't, you absolutely not nailed it. It's just about strategy at the time. And they have no true morals or true moral fiber. They'll just sit there and go, what's the strategical best decision? And they'll get it done. And yeah, that's Western foreign policy. And I think it's the same across basically the entire Western world. But this idea, when I hear people talking about tolerance, it just, when I hear it, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, this is evil, this is bad, but you're intolerant. Because you don't like evil. And there has to be a point where you stand up as a man and society stands up and says, yes, I'm intolerant of certain things. If someone broke into my house and tried to just start making dinner, I'd be like, whoa, who are you? Like, be tolerant. No, I will not be. Who the fuck is this guy?
It depends on what food is cooking. Right?
Well, I mean, there has to be a line in the sand.
Yeah.
And the reason they keep talking about tolerance, diversity, inclusion, tolerance is not because they care about different people of different races or different beliefs. Certainly not beliefs, because you're not allowed a different belief. That's the number one thing. Yeah. But it's because they want you to just sit down and swallow the pill and allow yourself to be brainwashed and not stand up for anything. That's all they want.
Isn't it ironic that they use tolerance as a way to try and manipulate you?
Completely. That's exactly what they try and do. In fact, and it's funny, I'm trying to think of an idea which is purported and accelerated by the mainstream media machine that isn't an attempt on manipulation. Every single thing that they jump behind and they try so hard to get you to believe in is a manipulation attempt. I'm trying to think of one that isn't. Why else would they waste their screen time? They're sitting there. These people are smart enough to understand that the internet's coming and people are spending more time on independent medias and people are learning more information from each other, and they're slowly, I mean, I don't want to go into the subject. We can talk about the last few years. They still have a grip on the world because they proved it, right? But with the common cold, but still, they're sitting there going, okay, we have this mass media machine. The average person only watches 6 minutes of our propaganda a day. They can't waste those 6 minutes, my friend. They need to go, what's our agendas? Let's get to the point. What do we need people to believe about X, Y, Z? They can't be sitting there telling us the truth. That's a total waste of time.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you now, because this is the hot topic, especially in the Muslim community, about your conversion. Yeah. So tell us the story, like what happened exactly.
Well, I think a lot of people who've been following me for a while understand that I've been very respectful of Islam for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
I was born in a Christian country. I was raised as a Christian, and I've always been very respectful of Islam, and it's become more and more obvious to me and more pertinent that Islam is the last religion on the planet. When I talk about Islam, because I'm new to it, I'm a little bit careful, right? Because I'm new to it. I'm certainly not a scholar. There's so much I need to learn. I know I'm on a learning journey. I'm not here to sit here and talk scripture. I don't know those things yet. I'm here to learn. Yeah. But
and we're here at your assistance.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it feels like the last religion on earth. I feel like there's no other religion. People say to me, why did you convert? And I said, I don't really feel it as a conversion. It's almost like I knew God was real and now I've become religious. And they say, well, you were religious before. I was like, religious before how? Christian? What does Christian mean? Like, who's not a Christian? You go to Christian nations and everyone says they're a Christian. Look how they live their lives. Go into the average church. Is anyone actually fearful of God? Anybody? No. The girls are out on Saturday night drinking and then they turn up to church because their parents made them. Like, there's no substance to the religion. And also, Islam very closely reflects my personal beliefs. Through my personal life, I've learned that if you don't have standards and you're not a strong person who's prepared to defend his ideas, you'll be crushed.
Yes.
And we look at most religions in the world today, which are not prepared to defend their ideas. What's happened to them? They're just getting crushed. And now we have Christianity as an idea, which has basically said, well, we can't set any firm rules because everyone will just quit. So instead, let's make it so easy to be a Christian that nobody has to put any effort in.
Yeah.
And then accept everybody no matter what. And hopefully we can keep the church doors open. That's not God to me, you know?
Yeah.
God to me is strong. God to me is something to be feared.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that people are afraid to mock.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that you have to go out of your way to prove something to. God to me has red lines.
Yeah.
Like, God to me represents the Islamic faith. The Christian God to me, I don't see God. I can't explain. I don't see anything there. So to me, it was the only logical choice in the end.
Alhamdulillah, man. I mean, as you're saying this, I'm sure many people are like ecstatic and extremely happy. It's a great thing for everyone, honestly, because, you know, just anyone coming into Islam is you know, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us it's better than the world and everything in it.
Yeah.
But imagine now somebody of major influence. I mean, you're the most Googled person on the planet. I'm not sure if you still have the top spot.
I think Putin might have beat me as of last week. But I think it's between me and Putin at the moment. But I don't want to lose to Putin. Look, Putin's the big G. I don't want more enemies. Like, it's fine, Vladimir. You can have it.
I never thought I'd hear you saying that statement.
Yeah.
Putin beat me last year. Right?
Yeah. Week. I think we're certainly the most Googled.
But no, it's definitely something beautiful. And a lot of people have, you know, you'll be surprised at how many women as well. Like, because obviously the accusations of misogyny and stuff, which, you know, but a lot of women, alhamdulillah, especially in the Muslim world, they're absolutely happy. In fact, let me tell you a story. Just before I came here today, one particular woman, I can't reveal her identity, but she's working as a school teacher in London. And actually, my friend told me that she was kicked out of school because they had this campaign against you in the schools. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
I've seen, this was part of the cancellation. I did know about this.
Yeah. So in British schools, they said, you know, if you say anything good about this person, or you have to be reported or prevent and kind of. And if you say anything, you know, you have to kind of combat his extremism or whatever it may be, right? So because when you became Muslim, she abstained from doing that. She said, I can't really do that because, you know, Islamic laws and it's backbiting and he's got honor in Islam and so on. And unfortunately, they fired her from the position.
Wow.
So you can see that this is the level of encroachment we're talking about here. So, and this shows you that the level of fraternity that exists. And not only the fact that, you know, when you're looking at Twitter or whatever social media, it's not a representation of what's really happening on the ground.
Of course. And I mean, that's crazy to hear. And what's most crazy is, the fervor behind this idea that I'm somehow extremist is truly clown world. Like, I've sat as a professional and analyzed my content and understood which things can be taken out of context and which things were said in a way perhaps they shouldn't have been said before I was massively famous. But we have to sit here and understand that if you take anybody on the planet and give them 7 years of YouTube and then they decide and they blow up big, you're going to be able to find 30 to 45 seconds of clip across all those years that can be taken out of context, right? Yeah. And it's truly crazy because they sit and say, oh yeah, but you know, the young boys are watching your stuff and they don't truly understand all of it, and there's nuance that's missing. And my argument is very simple. My argument is, well, one, you're taking small clips out of context, and two, there's not a single piece of content on the internet that a 14-year-old boy can't misunderstand. Name someone who's producing content on the internet that you would be 100% happy for a 14-year-old to
drill artists, and so they're saying. I mean, I live in an area I'm not going to mention the names of the artists, but they're talking about going to this person's house and killing him.
And killing him in the middle of a knife crime epidemic. Yeah. We have Lil Nas twerking on having sex with the devil in his music videos. Really? Like, we're going to sit here and talk about how children can be impressionable young children, and I'm sitting there saying there's no way I'm the worst person on the internet. That's not why they deleted me.
The difference for them is, as you've mentioned, on those fronts, it doesn't matter to them because it's like, okay, they're consuming our hedonistic products or whatever it is. It doesn't change their worldview. Whereas what you're saying is ideological now. You're challenging the status quo of the LW, of the liberal world order. You're challenging second wave feministic notions. You are challenging some liberal notions. You are challenging ideas, commonplace ideas of tolerance. And George Orwell said it very well. He said that the more a society moves away from the truth, the more it hates people who speak it.
Absolutely, and you're right. And I think even the basic things I teach, because some people have said to me, Andrew, all you teach about is personal responsibility, motivation, working hard, getting up and doing the right thing. I said, that's the absolute, those are the things they're most afraid of. If you teach people to have standards for themselves and to be morally strong people and to know right from wrong, then they can't brainwash you. Yes. So that's what they're most afraid of. They're most afraid of young men waking up and going, no, I don't believe that. You have to believe it. No, I don't believe it. I don't want to. And I want to go do this. I want to go to the gym and be strong, or I want to believe X, or I want to be a moral person. They genuinely have a problem with baseline morality.
Yes. Yeah.
Understand? When some people recognize when I converted to Islam that there was a time I was an atheist. There was a time when I was atheistic. And the reason I am now so absolutely certain that God is real is because I've seen evil. I've seen shaitan. I've seen it. When you see enough evil, you realize that there must be an equal and opposite force. And there are people out there in the world today doing the work of the devil, genuine demons, who are trying to destroy the baseline morality that's inside of all of us. We're all born with some kind of morality, and they're trying to destroy it.
And that's exactly the Islamic understanding, that we believe that you're born with something called fitrah, which is the initial goodness. You're born with an innate belief, receptivity to believe in one God. Yeah. And then that is corrupted. In fact, there's a prophet, hadith of the prophet, where he says, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every born child is born upon this initial goodness. فَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِهِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِهِ. And then his father and mother, or his parents, they socialize him into, Christianity, Judaism, Magiism. So the idea is that everyone is born with this initial goodness and this initial will or want to believe in God, one God. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, it's what you're mentioning here is profound, because you're mentioning a central doctrine in Islam.
But it's and this is why perhaps I found God the way I did, because I understood all these things first, and then I saw the Quran, and it confirmed so many things for me. Like even the conversations I've been having so far, so many things have been confirmed, and it's amazing the knowledge that's inside of it, which is so applicable today. For an old book, right? It's supposed to be old, but it seems so timeless. But it's truly amazing. But you're totally right. And the baseline morality, I don't think most people understand that when they're doing this under the guise of tolerance, when they're saying be so tolerant that you no longer believe in right from wrong, they're not doing that to make society a better place. They're doing that to empty your brain so that you have no resistance to the slave mind programming. They want to get you to a point where if they tell you the sky is green, you look at with your own eyes and you see blue, but no, the sky is green. That's what they want, so that you have to have nothing in your brain that can prevent that. If you have God, if you have, no, I believe this is right and wrong, if you have personal responsibility, if you have self-accountability, if you're a person who sticks up for what he believes, all that's bad to them. They want all of that gone so they can tell you the sky is green. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want the stream to end, but they're going to tell you something much worse than the sky is green. They're going to tell you something else. And they're trying to program us all into slaves, and it's scary.
I remember when I was in my undergraduate days, and I was reading a particular book by this guy called Jeremy Bentham, who became the spiritual forefather of J.S. Mill, who is the father of social liberalism of today. And I remember reading this because it was so powerful, because it linked to something I read in the Quran. He said that, you have two gods. He said you have the God of pain and you have the God of pleasure. And I thought, this is so interesting. The Quran states, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who takes his own desires as a God? And because now there is no transcendental force that we can look up and, as you say, venerate. Now we're forced to be slaves to the system, we're to our own desires. Or, the Quran has another verse which I think is so powerful and it connects very well with what you're saying. It says, God darab Allahu mathalan, rajulan, that God has struck a parable of a man, fihi shuraka mutashakisuna, that he has got many different slave owners. Wa rajul salaman li rajulin, and another kind of man who's only got one slave owner. God is basically telling us in the Quran that you've got one example of one individual who's got multiple slave owners and another one with just one. He says, هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَانِ مَثَلًا. Are they the same? So here, the idea is, as Rousseau said it, he's a liberal philosopher, he said that man is born free but everywhere in chains. this is the order. Because if you don't have that God to worship, then you're going to end up having to worship to everything else. And the whole part of the shahada which you took, which is ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, the true meaning of that, la ilaha illallah, is that there is no God worthy of worship except for one God.
Yep.
Which means that your desires or the system or these people that want to control us, the problem is they're not worthy of worship. The only one worthy of our subordination and submission is the creator of the heavens and the earth. There's no one else.
I agree, and I completely agree, and I've agreed with this for the longest time. You know, I've never been to like a music concert, and people ask me why, and I said, I just look at it and I feel embarrassed. I look at someone up on a stage dancing around, and I look at hundreds of thousands of peasants in the crowd, just yeah. I'm like, it's I feel cringe. It's like secondhand embarrassment when I see these festivals and everyone's losing their mind, or these music concerts. I genuinely feel embarrassed for the people who go, because to me that is a form of worship. Like, you can listen to the music at home for free. You don't have to wait in that line and stand out in the cold. Like, I don't know. Perhaps it was a bit extreme, but I've always known that they're trying to give us false idols to some degree. And when I speak to atheists, they go, oh, I don't believe in God. But they've signed up so hard to the liberal woke agenda. They're as religious as anybody, but they're just believing in the wrong things. They're believing in degeneracy, and they're believing in the work of the devil. So humans always need something to believe in. And it's a great thing you said about your own desires. It's like, one guy I was talking to since my conversion says, it's interesting that somebody with everything, all the Western world, everything somebody could want, has now converted. And I said, yeah, because even before my conversion, I understood that hedonism is a black hole, and you can never fill it. You're never going to be able to have enough girls to be happy with girls. You're never going to be able to have enough money to be happy with money. You're never going to be able to, drink enough to be happy with drinking. Like, it's a black hole, and you can pour endless things down it, but you'll never fill it up. And you need to have some degree of self-restraint. And I've always been a very disciplined person. I've never made mistakes. But certainly, the higher power is going to give you more satisfaction in your heart than endless insanity.
Absolutely, because I did see a clip of you making the same points. You were saying that, I've done all of these things. Because the accusation is, well, you are the poster child of hedonism, right? Say this guy, you're talking about.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But what's annoying about that is I'm absolutely not. That's what's so annoying about that, because I know so many people of my net worth. I will sit here and say, on the podcast before everybody and before God, voila. Never slept with a prostitute or paid for sex in my life. I don't gamble. I've never taken a drug in my life, never tried steroids, never tried weed, never tried cocaine ever in my life, ever. Never. Yeah. Like, I drank a bit of alcohol, smoked some shisha, smoked some cigars, and spent most of my life as an athlete, working hard, 12, 14-hour days making money. But I look after my family. So for me to be, they go, you're the poster boy of hedonism. I say, I know so many people who do so much worse than me. I really don't do that much. I'm not gambling.
Andrew, from our perspective, if you've done all of that, your slate is clean,
which is amazing. But it's just incredible to me that, especially at my level of net worth, right? I grew up in Luton, poor on a council estate, and now I'm pretty financially successful. And once you get past this line and you meet these other people who are as rich as I am, they get a boat, they put 100 girls on it who are paid for, a big pile of cocaine. I don't do any of them things. Like, I'd stand by and say I'm one of the for a man with a bunch of money from a council estate, I'm as pretty behaved as you can possibly hope for. So.
No, I feel that in you. Obviously, you are, in your previous life, you were the world champion in kickboxing. That requires a certain level of restriction, discipline, and these kinds of things. I do think that this is kind of like a misconception.
Yeah. I
mean, people think that it's part of your marketing. It's probably self-induced marketing. It's part of your marketing engineering strategy that you've engineered yourself as, this is my life. But in reality, though, is it fair for me to say that if something doesn't have proper meaning and purpose for you, you won't really enjoy it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, in fact, the number one thing I hear from people who meet me in person is, I've had so many people meet me and they're like, you surprised me. I'm like, why? They're like, you're just working, you just sit on your phone, or you just work on your laptop, and like, they thought I'd be this crazy guy running around being crazy, and they realize I'm extremely restrained. I'm very careful about everything I do. From the food.
What's your routine like?
Okay, so it's a good question. So I wake up, whatever time that happens to be. What
time do you wake up?
I have a problem sleeping.
Okay.
I'm not good at sleeping. I really struggle with it. So I can maybe get 5 to 6 hours a night, maybe. And the reason I can't sleep is because if my brain is even semi-conscious, I'm thinking of a work or some problem I have to fix, and then I end up on my phone, and then I can't sleep. That's how it works. So I can give perfect examples. Like there's even before this podcast, I knew I had to be up. I had to go doctors at 8, and then I had to come to this podcast. So I said last night, let me try and go to bed a little bit early. I tried to go to bed at 11, and then I woke up to go toilet at 2:25 a.m. And then I was thinking about some construction in my house in Romania and some invoices that I hadn't seen yet. And then by the time I messaged my assistant, now I'm awake.
Yeah.
So now I've been awake since 2. I can't turn my brain off. I struggle with it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not good at sleeping, but let's say I wake up around 9-ish, but I go to bed usually around 3, 4.
Yeah.
First thing I do is drink 2 liters of water. Then I train. Every day I train for about...
What do you do?
I train for about 30 to 45 minutes a day. I don't train...
What is it? What kind of training is it?
It depends where I am because I travel so much.
Right.
So if I'm in hotels, you kind of got to do what you can do, right?
Okay.
So mainly it's weights now. I don't box as often because it's inconvenient. Like if I was training for a fight, it's different. Yeah. And I was sparring a couple days ago. I still got the move. No one can hit me, so I'm still got it. Yeah. But so usually about 45 minutes, I tear through a bunch of weights. I just go as crazy as I can, get that out of the way. Yeah. Bunch of coffee. I'm a coffee addict, I guess. I don't know if that's still allowed. I hope so. Yeah, but okay, good. Because I love caffeine. I believe caffeine's a miracle drug. So I'll have 2 or 3 coffees, another 2 liters of water. I only eat dinner every day. I don't eat breakfast. I don't eat lunch. Yeah. And then from there, it's just completing tasks. I have something to do. I have a podcast with you to do, or I have somewhere to go, or I have to go. Maybe sometimes it'll be something good, like pick up a new car or a new watch. But if not, I promise you now, I spend every waking second on my laptop or staring at my phone running the empire. That's all I do is work. Life to me is work. Life to me is work at the point now. Sleeping's work. I only sleep because if I don't sleep, I wouldn't be able to work. Wow. If I could work without sleeping, I wouldn't sleep. People look at my life and they, especially you're right, with the marketing, they see the cars, they see the boats, they see girls, etc. And they're like, oh, wow, he's living this crazy life. And then they get around me and realize that, yeah, we're on a boat. Yeah, there's hot girls. Yeah, it's a yacht. But I'm on my laptop and I'm working. That's it. That's all I want to do is run the empire because it gives me a sense of purpose. So it sounds boring to say, but all I do is work, my friend. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. When I finish this, we'll talk, we'll have a bit of food, etc. I'll get in the car, I'll go back, and I will work until my next appointment. That's it. I just work. That's all I do. So it's kind of funny because people say to me, like, what's the secret to getting rich? And I'm like, it's easy if you don't do anything else but work. Like, I don't have any, my only, like, I'm trying to think of what even hobby I have. I love to drive.
What is the secret of getting rich?
That's a good question. That's a good question. We live in an attention economy, so I think stage 1 is certainly attention. Stage 2 is once you have that attention, establishing credibility. And then stage 3, once you've established the credibility, is finding a way to genuinely improve people's lives. The reason I do so fantastically well is because everybody who's ever followed me or tried any of the things I talk about, their life gets better. So it's very easy to say, oh, I've tried Tate's program and my life's better, or I tried this, I followed Tate and I feel happier. So then, of course, they're going to understand the brand, and that's the way to do it. But truly, it's hard work. You need to be able to work endless hours. It's extremely competitive. You need to be able to work as harder than the other guys, and that's the only way I did it. I ground to the top the old-fashioned way, and that's still what I do. I just work.
So with this, basically, I'll say that, in terms of your routine, Islamically, the main thing to focus next on will be the prayers, 5 prayers a day, right? And so that's obviously 1 in the morning, and then you'll have like prayer times and stuff like that, where you have to do the ablution and learn to. I saw you kind of praying. That was
I'm learning it, and I've been told the times, and I've got all this, and I'm going through all that, and I have to incorporate that as well.
It gives you a solid structure. I feel like it gives you anchorage in the day. It's the spine of my personal day. I feel like it just creates that structure in the day. Yeah. And it's a spiritual thing. I mean, even the prayer itself, when one prays and they say Allahu Akbar, which is Allah is the greatest, some people think it's some kind of war chant. They do it in war as well, I mean, to be fair. But they say Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah is greater than everything else, this whole world and everything in it. And then when they start engaging in prayer, then what you're doing is you're trying to, in a sense, get out of the zone of being in this world, connect with God, ask God for guidance. And we do that very consistently because we feel like, the belief is that guidance is in God's hands, and so doing that, spiritually cleansing, for me, it's the most important thing that one can do in the whole day. So that, in terms of your structure, that would be the thing that you'd put in next. But I wanted to ask you about something else now, which I think is something you're known for as well, in terms of speaking about these things, is your gender positions, okay? So this is, a lot of people have controversy with you, accuse you of misogyny and all these kinds of things. I mean, let's say now, maybe as after you've become Muslim or even before, what are your views on gender? Like, how would you summarize your views on gender?
I would summarize my views on gender by being very simple and stating the fact that I think that the genders are different. I think we have different strengths and weaknesses. I think men are better at some things than women. I think women are better at some things than men. I think when we work together as a team, that makes us the most powerful force on the planet. I think the biggest problems with the world today is that everybody is trying to pretend that they're interchangeably as good as each other at the same things, and that's destroying the teamwork. It's very simple. If I was an accountant and I met a tailor, I'd say, okay, you make the clothes, I'll do the accounting. And then as a team, we have a very profitable business, right? If we were to turn up and we were to decide, you know what, I'll do half the accounting and you do half the accounting, and you do half the tailors and I do half the tailors, where our tax bill will be a mess, the jackets won't fit, like it'll all fall apart. I don't know why it's so confusing for people to sit there and understand and go, yeah, women have certain strengths and weaknesses, men have certain strengths and weaknesses, and when we both understand them, both accept them, and work as a team, then we're a complete package, and this is why God created us to be different. If we were exactly the same, we wouldn't need each other. This is what makes us need each other.
That's a powerful statement.
This is why we need each other.
We wouldn't need each other.
That's right, and this is what people don't understand when they sound misogynistic or I say bad things. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm talking about the differences between men and women so people understand that men need women, and women need men. And that's what creates beautiful families. That's what keeps society functioning. And as soon as you point out the differences between the two genders, they're going to attack you because they don't want men and women to need each other. That's one of the things they really don't want, because the number one thing that will inspire you to resist against total tyranny is protection of your family. They don't want the family unit in terms of the nuclear family, because otherwise when they come to your door, the devils and the demons, you're going to stand up and say, no, my wife and children are inside. They don't want that. They want you to just be hedonistic and not really have anything of value and nothing worth fighting for and defending, because then you'll accept the slave programming, accept whatever they want you to do. But yeah, my views on gender are very, very simple. I think that we're slightly different, but together we're ultimately powerful. And pointing that out has somehow labeled me negative by this vocal minority of psychopaths. And it truly, and I say psychopaths because they truly are. They're psychopaths, these people. They're truly destructive. And when I look at the people who have the most hate for me, who say I'm the most detrimental to women, if I look at their lives, none of them are happily married. A lot of them aren't even into women. They swing a completely different direction. Like, these people, why are you pretending you care about a masculine man's views on females? Why do you pretend you care when I say I want to protect and provide for my woman? If she doesn't want to work, she doesn't have to work. I'll take care of her in that way, and she'll take care of me in another way. Why are you pretending that offends you when your relationship with women in your own personal life doesn't even exist? And if it does, it's awful.
I'll tell you what's going to happen now. As we're agreeing and talking now, some people, especially some feminist people that are influenced by feminism within the Muslim community, say, look, this is exactly what we feared. He's not holding him to account. He's not speaking to him about the wild statements. The truth is, I'll say this: I don't actually feel like I need to judge you, because, quite frankly, Allah has already wiped away your sins. Any statement that you made before about women, or anything that you've done with women before, once again, it's not my business to judge you upon that. So that should be the Islamic position. However, let's say for the wider community, right? Because at the end of the day, we do want you to kind of not reintegrate, especially not in the matrix. Now, alhamdulillah, you're out of the matrix, let's say, fully out of it. Islam is totally out of the matrix. That's why they hate it so much. Some of the comments that you've made, I haven't got a list of them. What are some of the comments that they accuse you of making, and what is the context of these comments? So
the two that they accuse me of most is where I said a woman is a man's property, which is the first one. And the second one that they try and get me with is where I said a woman should bear some responsibility for being sexually assaulted. Both of them are massively taken out of context. I'd like to explain them.
إذا أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والتعليق، ولكي يصلك كل جديد اشترك الآن.